Mark, Kieran, good to see you both again. Before we start talking football, how are you both?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. A little worn from what has been probably the longest transfer window in the world, but no, good. Good, excited, looking forward to creating the next successful chapter for this football club.
Kieran?
Yeah, I'm good. Again, busy summer. Lots going on. Not the start of the season that we all would have hoped for, but with a real positive outlook and clear direction of travel, really. I think in terms of what we want to do next, where we want to bring the team to. Yeah, looking forward to what's coming up. We've got our group in now, international break this week, but the boys we've had the last few days training well. Looking forward to getting the whole group back together next Wednesday, hopefully safe and fit from the international duty and ready to crack on.
You said it there, busy summer. It was a busy summer. The Ed Sheeran concerts, the Fabio Wardley fight as well. Glad that's over.
Yeah, Fabio fight seems a very long time ago, but yeah, a lot of work behind the scenes to deliver the fight, a once in a generation event, and then 3 incredible Ed Sheeran concerts that were just fantastic. And again, I think he was buzzing with them as much as we were, and I think it was an opportunity to showcase the club, the town, the county, and put us on a global map. So busy summer, but a great summer.
And just the training ground, how's that at the moment? Because big redevelopment going on at the training ground. Obviously, you've been back there now for a few months. Are you training in a building site, or how's that going?
Yeah, there's loads going on. It's exciting to see, to be honest. I have to say the club have done a great job of sort of boxing it all off. So the work that's going on is sort of well behind some pretty big walls now. But from the training pitch, you can see and hear the cranes every day. So I think we're going to be able to sort of see the building as it goes up and above the walls. So really exciting on that side, but yeah, there'll be a little bit of disruption, but no, to be honest, it's really good signs. We know it's going to be a fantastic facility at the moment. Everyone's working around each other as best that they can, but it's a great thing for every single department of the football club. So it's exciting to see that going up, and we're looking forward to it being finished.
I'm looking at the date. We're into September. I bet you're glad the transfer window's over. I bet you're glad August is over, aren't you? Yeah,
I think I always am, to be honest with you, Matt. I feel like I've been probably in a transfer window for about a year. I don't think we've ever spoken so much. I think, look, from the moment we got promoted to the Premier League, I genuinely feel like I've been in a transfer window consistently. And that's okay, but anyone who works in this industry will tell you that's tough. Because it moves on an hourly basis, let alone a daily basis. But I'm always glad when it's shut. We have to be ready for the next one. That will come around pretty quick. But yeah, it's been tough.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk more about the transfer window in just a minute. Can I take you back to last season, Kieran? Difficult season in the Premier League. What did you learn most from last season?
Look, I think of course you get asked that question a bit. I think there's so many things that you learn from it. I think a lot of it is private conversations, to be honest, and private reflection, because there's no way to, speak about your reflections outwardly without, addressing other things. I think I learned a lot, we learned a lot. It's coming off the back of a couple of incredibly successful seasons for the club. A different experience for me. Looking upwards in the division rather than down from where we've been here the last few years, and from my experiences before that as a coach as well, I've usually been at the other end of the division, so there's certainly learnings and reflection there of life at that end of the table and the things that are most important.
How different is it managing the group through a difficult season? Because you just had back-to-back promotions. It's probably easy when everything's going well.
Look, I think we all knew it was going to be a difficult season, so I think a really, really difficult season is when you're in a completely different position than what is expected to be. I think in reality, for the first half, almost first 2/3 of last season, we were really, really competitive, and we were thereabouts, and certainly probably around January time and coming off the back of a few of the results and performances, I think we felt really, really, really close. So the group were excellent all year, to be honest. The boys worked really hard in training. I think we competed really, really well most weeks. And in the end, the jump was a little bit too high. And, you know, in the end of the season, we didn't finish the results that we wanted, and we finished with a small group with a lot of injuries and a real challenge. But I don't think anyone, you know, quit or stopped trying or didn't stick together to the very end. So, of course, the feeling of winning on a personal level and around the group is better than the feeling of not winning. And we've had a few years of that great feeling, and around the club, around the town, and in your own, you know, life as well. It's a lot better feeling on a Saturday night to go home after a win, but we knew the season was not going to be that season. It was always going to be tough. It was tough. I think we've learned a lot from it as a club, certainly as every individual within it, and I certainly feel that, you know, the aspiration for the club to get back there, I think, will be so much stronger for the experiences that we went through. So that has to be the next goal, the next challenge. Of course, lots of teams are competing for the same thing, but I think, having, as a football club, not been there for 20 plus years, to have done it so quickly was a huge achievement, but also then a huge challenge. The next goal now is to try and get there again, and if we do manage to do it, then I think the club's going to be infinitely stronger in every area and more ready to take on that challenge. So, of course, there's mixed memories from last year, but I also am adamant again to think that we'll look back at last season with some incredible days for the club, some of the best results the club's had in decades, and some incredible memories for a new generation of supporters seeing Premier League football here for the first time. And the next challenge is trying to make it a more regular thing now, and hopefully a very regular thing. So, you know, that's what we're on to now.
Mike, you said it's been the most challenging transfer window you've ever overseen. Why do you think that's the case? Why this summer has been the most difficult?
I think it links to what Kieran's just said. A club that's been outside of the top flight for 20 years, had back-to-back promotions to the Premier League. The one thing you can't buy is time. It's impossible to be prepared. And you're chasing time always with infrastructure, staff, resource, knowledge. You just can't get enough time. You can't get ahead of the curve, and recruitment's the key part of that. And I think if you look, you know, historically now, every club that gets promoted from the Championship to the Premier League finds it really tough, particularly in that first season. When you've been out of the top flight for 20 years, only had one season in the Championship to stabilise, and then have got to bounce and go again, it's really tough. And look, I think we pushed the envelope financially with regards to financial fair play. Board and ownership were fantastic. And I think the players that we recruited primarily, you know, were good asset values for us, and that's been shown this summer. But it's tough. And that jump from the Championship to the Premier League is going to get no easier. That's for sure. And I think the other big thing for that is, look, when we got promoted, we recruited players to lapse Amaris on permanent deals. That's not easy. There's a lot of people involved, from Kieran, myself, recruitment staff, etc., to get those players into the club because they're sought after. And you know what Kieran did then was, even though we weren't winning every week, was an incredible job at developing that talent. And that showed probably from May onwards, when we started to see the noise around Liam. What we'd done is, a consequence of our success in recruiting development players was other clubs wanted those players and were prepared to pay big money for those players. And look, I think it's important the fan base understand the first thing that we did with Liam was try to persuade him to stay at this football club. And I don't think from a football perspective or a financial perspective that was an issue. It was simply his desire to play in the top league. Amari was similar, a different story.
Axel, I suppose, the same.
Axel the same, and I can understand that, and it's frustrating for us. But you know, Kieran's development of the talent allowed us to drive, you know, in just two players, almost £70 million worth of income to this football club. This football club's never done that before, and if we'd have said 3 years ago we were going to do that, I think people would have probably laughed at us. So that brings challenges. And you know, if you look at the industry as a whole right now, you see some of the challenges big clubs like Newcastle are having. You know, we've had similar challenges here, trying to retain some of the players. And you know, whether it was those two boys, whether it was Nathan Broadhead, or whether it was a handful of other players, let's be really clear, because of the recruitment and development Kieran's put into them, top league clubs wanted to buy them, and we had to fight them off. Ultimately, some have moved on, but that brings challenges in retaining before you've even got to bringing others in.
Big turnover in personnel again. I think it was 14 players out, 11 players in.
Yep.
Was that always the plan, the strategy? Did you think that would be the case this summer? Did you expect as much change?
No, look, I think you can look at the numbers of 14. You can always probably trim a few off of that with lads maybe who are out of contract or on loan and things like that. So it's never quite as big as the total. I think we had a number in our head that, you know, you probably usually got a bandwidth that we think we'll probably have so many in, so many out. Yeah, we're a few over that for sure in terms of the outs and the ins. And there's different reasons and different circumstances behind that. I say you can't categorise all in the same bracket. You can't put all the players together in ways, you know, certain players have left or certain players have arrived. It's different situations, and I think in general we've, as a club, tried to, you know, always conduct ourselves right and find the right balance between what's going to be right for the squad, what's going to be right for the team this year to try and be successful, and also respecting, you know, individual players' careers, trajectories, their pathways, what's right for them and their futures as well. So yeah, there's no doubt there's been a lot of moving parts in that in the summer. That's obviously been one of the challenges that we've lost, you know, some top characters from the building who've had huge success at the football club, and that's been difficult for the summer for everyone involved because of the emotional attachment there. There's no doubt, no getting away from that. But we've also brought some really good players to the football club and some really good people. And, you know, some of those players have had 1 or 2 games or some haven't even got on the pitch yet. So this, you know, there's a really bright future for some of those boys, I believe. There's a really potential to have a really bright future for the team. And, you know, that's what's ahead of us now. That's what we have to work towards. So for sure there's been a lot of change both ways. Some situations probably beyond, you know, what could have been predicted. But there's also, again, I say a really good group there now, a really good squad, some really good players and people have come into the club. And now it's about us as a manager, as staff, as supporters, I think, as everybody, getting right behind those players, pushing those players to, you know, get the very best out of them and make sure that, yeah, we can try and, as I've said quite a few times, build another great team and those players can, you know, push on and also have great times and great careers at the club.
How challenging in particular has the last week been? Because we've seen a few bodies in, including one from down the road, and we've seen a few players leave who've been a big part of the success at this football club over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, it was a really busy and sort of, yeah, probably emotional weekend for lots of people in different ways because, yeah, we had Marcelino and Ivan and Sindre and Darnell all arrive some version of Friday, some late Thursday night or Friday morning, but Friday was the first time we got to see them. So there's that mixture of you're really excited and happy to have them. We've had to wait a little while for a few, but also you know that there's a big game on Saturday and you know the focus has to be there and you're not going to really get the impact from them boys until after the international break and further down the line. So there was that on Friday, and then you have the game at the weekend, and then yeah, two players who've been a big part of it for different reasons over the last couple of days leaving us. I think, look, in Luke's case, everyone knows what a big part of the club he's been. It's been known all summer really that he expressed in the off season that he wanted to move on to a different challenge this summer, and you know, in those situations, as there have been in some other cases over the summer with players in similar boats, you don't want to lose them, you want to keep them. They've been a really important part of what they've done, and they would have made us stronger this year in terms of being in the group, but also it's players' career, and you want to try and respect their wishes, and especially players who've done so much for us if they have a wish to be somewhere else. In the end, if it can be done, you don't want to stand in the way. And also for the group, as I said all along, we really need a group come the end of the window of boys who 100% want to be here, and you don't want anyone to be stuck here for the wrong reason. And then Connor as well. Look, I think, you know, that for all of us, again, he's one of the best people I've ever had the pleasure of coaching, of meeting. One of the best people you could ever meet. Being an amazing player, is still a fantastic player, and you know, someone who I hold in the highest regard. over the weekend had, and me and Conor have spoken all summer, because he's someone you really can have an honest man-to-man conversation, and I think the mutual respect there is top, and we've spoke all summer and had different conversations about his future and what the best thing for him would be as adverse to what we need from him this year. And look, he's had the opportunity that he brought to us over the weekend to go back to his hometown club on a loan with a break clause to get regular minutes. He's a player who didn't make a lot of starts last year, had a pretty, not a big injury, but missed a few months at the back end of last year. When players at that stage of the career, if you don't make as many starts for a couple of seasons, it's not always a great thing. So me and him spoke about those things a lot. He had a brilliant opportunity in terms of his personal life, his experience, his career, to go and play regularly at Portsmouth in a club that he also has an affinity for, and accumulate and rack up those regular starts. And with Conor, hopefully that'll end up meaning regular goals for him as well. So that was a difficult one, because you're losing an unbelievable person from the dressing room and someone who would have helped us this year. But again, I think it's a player whose own desire and what's best for his career. I think it's right that it has to be understood and listened to. And in the end, it's a move that, I think is a great experience and opportunity for him. He hopes, we hope the door's still very much open here, and we haven't seen the last of him. But a great chance for him to go and play games at a really, really important stage of his career to hopefully start every week. So, we know that's a loss for the club, for the dressing room, but it's also, what Conor felt was right for him at the moment. And if anyone deserves to have that respect, to be listened to in that way and supported, it's him. So, he's got Southampton next weekend, first game. I'd hope he goes and bags the winner against them. We'll keep in good contact over the next few months. We'll be watching his games. I'm glad he can't play and score against us. I'm sure hopefully he can do it against some other teams, and we'll see what the future brings. So it was a really, really busy last few days, and I think we're all glad to see the window shut, to be able to sort of regroup and then crack on. Some big players out, some new players in, who they've got the future ahead of them now, and we look forward to having the group back and cracking on from next week.
We've recruited more from abroad this summer. Why? Have we just widened our scouting network? Is it as simple as that?
Yeah, look, I think it's always been, a goal and a target really over the last few years. But as Mark says, catching up for time's a big challenge, because when you get promoted, 2 seasons in a row, we spoke at different times along the journey. That one, it's hard to build the infrastructure from your recruitment. 2, it's hard to bring new players in to a new league all the time when it's your first year in that league. So that's probably slowed that process as well, as if we were maybe in what we could go into our 3rd season in the Championship, or I'd like to think not, but maybe our 7th season in League One as a club. You have more time to build those things, and you sort of add people to the group who might take a little bit of time to adjust. So I think we have known that's an area that we've needed to work on and improve at the club. I think to establish in the Premier League now, it's almost impossible to do without a really, really good international recruitment process, because of the value and that's possible in some of those markets adverse to the British markets. And over the journey, we weren't there in terms of infrastructure. I still think, and Mark can speak about it more, we've still got a lot to do to be where we want to be, but those processes are coming into play a little bit more. So it's meant that our knowledge, our connections, our eyes in those markets are stronger than what they were, and we've been able to bring in some players from those markets.
And how challenging is it from a tactical coaching perspective when you've had players like a Morsey, Chaplin, Wolford, who are so used to working with you and so used to your methods, then having so many new players in, having to adapt to the way you work?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a challenge, and not just for that player, but when they're coming in with other players who aren't as familiar, there's always a challenge to that. And it is what it is. It's it's the story, it's the journey of the club. I don't think we would have had it any other way in terms of success. But again, if we hadn't have had that, then we'd probably have going in the first game of the season, we'd maybe have 7, 8, 9 starters from what we would have had 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago, and you'd have added 1 or 2 players to that starting team as you went along. But there's been a hell of a swing, a hell of a change. I think somebody said that the Preston game, for example, there was 1 player who started 18 months before when we played there in the league. That's a big turnover, and a big part of that is inevitable of the change we've had. So that makes it more of a challenge. But that's coaching. That's the job now for us, and we've got to try and integrate people as quick as we can, get people up to speed as quick as we can. Of course, yeah, like when you talk about foreign or international markets, it can sometimes take players from those markets a little bit longer. But just in general, players moving to a club takes time to adjust. That's not just at Ipswich, that's universal rules of football. There's lots of stats and studies on it of minutes played from players who arrive at clubs. There's a lot of adjusting to do to new area, new house, new training, new teammates, new style, new system, and it doesn't tend to always click into gear straight away. So I think even the boys who've been here, a lot of them arrived maybe 3 seasons ago. A lot of them found that as well. So that's the challenge. We've got to try and help these players, push them, get them together as quick as possible. Even some of those who arrived last summer, or maybe in the first season this year, starting more games regularly, or even if they're here last year, it's a completely different league now. We're a completely different team in this league than we were in the last league. So there's a lot to get to grips with, but again, it is what it is. That's the challenge ahead of us. It's one that we're working really, really hard at. It's one that we plan to continue to really tackle head on, and I really believe we'll see the fruits of the labours. I can already see some of it, but I really believe we'll see the fruits of that labour in the weeks and months ahead.
I know you take great pride in developing players, developing coaches as well, because Lee Grant has moved on. I'm sure you wish him well. You're disappointed to lose him, but you wish him well in his first job as a manager.
No, that's a nice question. No one's asked me about that one yet. In all my press conferences this year, so. It's I was delighted for Lee when he had the opportunity. Really disappointed to lose him, but boy, did he deserve it of anyone who's worked so hard over the last few years. And I saw how hard he was working at United, as in his role as goalkeeper, but he was already working towards being a manager. So I think it's another great thing for the club. I have to say, I think you look at the top clubs and they develop players and they develop staff, and Mark spoke about Liam and Omari, and even some of the older players like Nathan, whatever, who've developed well here. But I think to have a staff member arrive who hadn't done, hadn't done any coaching, but hadn't been a coach before he arrived, and 3 seasons here, and he's taken over a really big League One club, and he's had a brilliant start there. So everyone's delighted for him. Again, that's more change, that's more turnover. It's inevitable consequence of success. We've had new staff members come in. We've had to develop our infrastructure there and how we coach, our set plays, all of those things, and none of that clicks into gear straight away. But we're delighted for Lee. It's a great reflection on the club as well, to be honest, and he's got the best wishes of everyone. And I think the staff behind the scenes now is stronger and more skilled than it's ever been. But we've also, like a lot of new players, we got a lot of new staff over the last month, 2 months, over the last 12 months, who are still growing into their roles. And again, I'm sure that the fruits of that labour will be seen in the months and hopefully years ahead.
Mark, you talk a lot about culture. What is the culture? What does it look like at Portman Road, at Playford Road? What is the culture of this football club?
I think, the reality is Kieran manages everything that really runs through Playford Road from the football perspective. I'm here at Portman Road and I oversee the whole piece. But the culture has been based around people. We've seen some really good players and some really good people, leave the football club in this transfer window. And I'm really forever grateful for, the friendship of Sammy, of Connor, Brodie, etc. Chaplin represented us in the foundation with yourself. They're friends. They've been really good people. But we also brought some really good people in, and that's part of our due diligence. And as Kieran just said, it's going to take them a little bit of time to settle. When Connor arrived and Sammy arrived and Nathan arrived and Leaf arrived at this football club, they weren't wonderful in those first few months. It took them a little bit of time to settle before they became the players who've done what they've done for this football club. So, you know, I said this before, when we joined the football club, we've got to love and cherish the history and tradition of this football club, but you've got to focus on the now. Because it's this group of players that we have now, this group of staff that we have now, that will create the successful future for this football club. It's vitally important to us. So our culture is based around people. Jason Schechterly will be over again shortly to meet all the new players, embed them into the foundation and the values that we have at the football club. But we've got some really good people. And Kieran's just said it's not just the players, it's the staff. We are still rebuilding this football club, and we'll be relentless on how we move forward. But the culture is very based on togetherness, doing the right thing when no one's looking. And again, I genuinely believe we have recruited some exceptionally talented players over this transfer window, and Kieran just needs a little bit of time, you know, to mould them together. But again, I see him every single day, and I can say this because he can't say this about himself and his staff. They work tirelessly. He's here every hour, every minute. They're relentless in what they do. And, you know, we will have another team that will create a new history for this football club, I'm sure.
And how important is Dara O'Shea in that respect? Obviously, new captain, a man who's got the armband now, in terms of leading that dressing room and leading the culture with the new players that have arrived.
No, it's important, and look, there's no better man for it. I don't think it's he's replacing, you know, probably the best midfield captain that Ipswich have ever had, unless anyone objects. No, he's coming in after you know, a captain who achieved so much. So that's always, it's not fair to make any sort of comparison. What I can say is another outstanding individual. A lot of the same traits as Sammy in terms of his competitiveness, will to win, how much he's ready to push and suffer for the team. Different characters, of course, but I think a really deserved captain for the football club. But I have to say, it's not just about Dara. It can't be, and it was never just about Sammy. Sammy was as good and as strong a captain as you could ever have for a group. But a captain can't do it by themselves. There was a really strong, you know, leadership group underneath him, and that leadership group had to grow and develop. You know, like Mark said, the people who. Has
it changed this year, your leadership group? Then
it has, yeah, and it's changed. Look, probably when I arrived, it was. Janoy was in it and Don Ball, and it's changed as it went along, and of course there'll be changes in it this year, and we have to develop. You know, we have some good leaders in the club, but we also need to develop those traits in other players. And I said, you know, some of the players who've done so great over the last few years, they didn't arrive as they left. You know, you have to develop those qualities, develop those personal skills. We got to help them with that. Of course, being part of a successful group can really help grow the players' self-esteem and confidence in terms of their stature in the club. So it's about how we support Dara, of course, within the dressing room, in terms of other leaders developing and growing and us helping them to grow around him, how we support him as a staff, how we support him as a supporters base will be really important. But yeah, his commitment, his professionalism, his will to do well for this football club is of the highest level, and he's stepped up to the role well, and we'll continue to try and build everything around him to help him be the best captain that he can be, and to help us be the best team that we can be.
We've clearly brought in a high calibre of player. How do you turn them into a team quickly?
No, that's the golden recipe, and you know, there's no secret, there's no massive shortcut to it. To be honest, I think it's the challenge of moving divisions so quickly. When, if you know, you see it with the best teams in England, Liverpool or Man City, or you know, with the best clubs, the best staff, the best managers, the best everything. If you have 6, 7, 8, 9 new starters in one of them teams, you're going to see it at the start of a year. The challenge of moving up and down divisions as quickly as we have means that we've had quite a lot of those changes. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of work. There's no two ways about it. A lot of work hard work on the training pitch, some hard work in the video room, group, individual units. There's a lot of work to be done from a tactical point of view. There's a lot of work to be done from a group culture and group sort of mentality point of view, establishing new norms in how we work, how we train, how we live, how we treat each other, how we push each other, all those sort of group norms that build a culture. You have to go through experiences together, because a football team isn't 4-4-2 or 3-4-3. It's not that. It's not inverting a winger or pushing a fullback higher. It's not just those things. It's the feeling, it's the connection between people. It's going through experiences, and again, the success we've had over the last few years is a lot of that team were together in League One. A lot of that team suffered together in League One. First 6 months, probably for some of those players who spoke about at the club in League One, didn't win very much and didn't play very well. And then we probably had a few months at the back end of that season with me where we played pretty well but didn't win as much as we would want to or what would have needed to get promotion. Then had 2 years of winning a lot, but with some bumps along the road for sure, where there was question marks and tough periods. But a group that really built that connection, that trust together, and built it in League One, not at the top end of the Championship or in the Premier League. And the players and the bonds and the trust and the self-esteem, and the mentality and confidence in that team was built here. And now we have to try and build that, and it will never, no two teams, no two groups are ever the same, but we got to build technically, tactically, we got to build it mentally and
have you seen enough
character-wise.
Have you seen enough signs? 4 games into the season. Have you seen enough signs from this group, though?
I think 4 games is not signs for anything,
No.
because the reality is it's 4 games into the season. We've probably got 4 or 5 of players who come into the group who haven't stepped on the pitch yet. A couple, it was Jens' first game. Tuba's not started the game yet. There's boys arrived who haven't played. We know that we've had a challenging summer, and we're short going into the first games in terms of readiness of where we'd want to be in some areas. So have we seen positive signs in the games? In my opinion, yes, of course. When you don't win, we haven't won in the league yet. We've only lost 1, but we haven't won, so you don't have that validation of a result. That will give everyone a big push and a big jump. Are there things to work on for sure, but are there signs game by game? Are there signs at the training ground of things growing? There are. And that's the direction we need to keep going in. So, yeah, the original question in terms of how do we build that group into a team, it's going to be a lot of hard work. And it's going to be going through experiences together. The supporters are a massive, massive part of that. There's no doubt about that. Going through experiences like Saturday wasn't the the result that we wanted. There was some good bits of the performance against Derby. There was also an incredibly frustrating second half. But we've scored a 104th minute goal. Jack Clark scored his first goal at that end. A late equaliser to show that we can win a game late, with Azon coming on, winning the battle that gets the second ball for the goal. He's not even met, or he's met the team just the day before, had half a session, and he comes on and Hemp's bundled through, and Jack gets the second ball, and we get a penalty, and Jack Clark steps up. It's not Jeremy Sarmiento poking one in against Southampton, and one of the best memories that we've had, but it's a moment, and you have to go through those experiences, and we have to see and feel those experiences for what they are. It's a late goal for a team at Portman Road, the first one that, even boys who were here last year have probably felt and experienced, and we need to take all of those positives and drive forward with them. We need to take the hurtful ones that we have, like, conceding a dubious penalty away to Preston and not being able to break down 11 big lads defending their goal with everything, take the frustration of that and learn from it and find a way through that and to be better in those situations. The group needs to go through these things, and if we go through them together with the right mindset, with a positive mindset, and push forward through them, then we can build a really strong team. If we get in a different direction after a few games of the season, when players have barely even been in the door yet, then it's going to be a lot more difficult. So that's the challenge. We need to go through these things. We need to go through them together. We need to fight with everything we got to come out the other side of them, to build these experiences in the players in the group, and that's a big part of how we'll try and build another big team here.
It's different this year, isn't it? Because I think it was your words. You said we're the hunted.
Yeah.
We probably were maybe in League One the year we got promoted.
Yeah.
Then we've had 2 seasons where we haven't been, and all of a sudden we're the hunted again.
No, it's definitely a mentality switch, and you've got to be ready for it. And look, I'll go back to Kieran. There's no silver bullet. There's no magic dust in this. We've got to make sure we've got the right processes in place. We've talked about trusting Kieran's processes before. And for someone who works on the inside and sees them and sees how detailed they are, and someone who's been in this industry a long time, there's no one better to put those processes in place than Kieran. But as he's just said, he had players here on Saturday who hadn't even met the team. They haven't even been on the pitch yet. So it's going to take a little bit of time, as it did when you first arrived. But you know, let's be really clear. What Kieran just said is right. We've talked before about the importance of togetherness, and whether you're shareholders, board members, chairman, team leaders, cleaner, gateman, we have to be together as one.
Regardless whether you've been here 1 minute or 15 years.
Exactly. Because, you know, the one thing I promise you, the minute you lose unity and togetherness, whether you're inside the club or as a fan base, a supporter, the minute you lose that unity, you wave goodbye to any future success, without fail. Togetherness is key. It's going to take a little bit of time. I understand change is difficult for people. You know, we feel it. We're people. We will miss some of the players who've been here and been successful. But we have to focus now on the ones that are here, and those are going to create the new history for this football club.
Promotion is clearly the aim. What other than promotion defines success for this football club? Is it simply we've just got to get up, or what, is there a bigger success model?
Listen, I think promotion is always the short-term goal. You know, we start every season that we've been here talking about how do we get promoted. This season will be no different. But this is a football club that's much bigger than just that. You know, we're trying to rebuild a training ground. Category 1 status for the academy now achieved. We've got no products that really come through. We've got 1 or 2 around the fringes. That whole piece now starts. That's a huge journey for the club. The redevelopment of the training ground, the continual redevelopment of Portman Road, the commercialisation of the football club. We are building something for the long term. And I've said this before, yes, we want to be successful, but we want to deliver sustainable success in top flight football. That's going to take some time. And I felt for Kieran last year, because the one thing we couldn't support Kieran with was time. And I felt genuinely there were periods where if he had more time, the season was longer, actually the results would have been different. But you know what Kieran said earlier, and in his comments, the way everybody in this club conducted themselves last season, the way he conducted himself in front of global media, the way the players conducted themselves, there was a lot of clubs around us in that league who were really big clubs who didn't, were chop and changing managers, were moving culture left and right. We didn't. I think everybody in this football club gave an amazing representation of themselves. We didn't ultimately get where we wanted to, but we will do. But we're building this football club for the long term, and we will be relentless in doing that. That's not going to stop that. It can't stop.
As always, appreciate your time. You've got a couple of weeks now before the big one against Sheffield United. Can wish you luck in that one. Wish you luck for the rest of the season, and maybe now that August is over, we'll get that game of paddle in.
You're on.